where I belong with you, right here with you.
from Mindanao, and she will be properly introduced later. So that is all I will have to say, so we can maximize the time. Welcome, everyone. Let's listen and let's ask questions later. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm JJ Joseph. I teach anthropology and sociology subjects. This will be short. I first heard of Sam Gutoc when she burst into the national scene when she resigned her position in the Bangsamoro Transition Committee after Rodrigo Duterte's rape jokes and the declaration of martial law in Mindanao. I wondered who is this fierce and fearless woman who dared stand up against Duterte. Marami namang women who stood up against Duterte. So she joined the ranks of these fierce and courageous women. Somehow, I met her a few months back and at a women's forum, and I heard her share the real horror stories in Marawi. Somehow we connected, and here she is now. I wish her luck, strength, discernment, and divine guidance in her journey towards a bigger platform in her fight to champion the rights of Muslims and non-Muslim Filipinos. Let's give a warm Baguio welcome to Miss Samira Ali Gutoc.
Thank you, J3. Thank you so much, po, Jay, for being a sister to me since we met again on the laws on anti-prostitution, no, months ago. So talagang she welcomed me and embraced me. To the dear professors ko, I was Mascom Portable, batch 93 in Diliman, and started with economics, BS Econ, and I came from Saudi po after 15 years of being an expat kid. Lumaki po ako sa Saudi and came into UP for the anti-US bases era, 91, when freshmen were bawal to rally. At kalayaan literally was my kalayaan, di ba? Kasi lahat nakaitim sa Saudi, ngayon naman lahat kami naka-shorts. So that I was not that girl yet that you see right now, na napaka-feeling conservative. And so in UP Diliman was really the literal freedom period for me, 91, when likes of Teddy Rigoroso and student council chairmen who led labor unions and really broke boundaries in trying to open up yung mga mata natin at yung kamalayan natin. And by the time I was third year, I was the first UP Muslim woman president of the UP Muslim Students Association that Nur Miswari led decades ago, although hindi ako naging MNLF or MILF. And so that was the period of trying to find that word freedom in me and in my role in society. And a lot of the books in UP Islamic Studies and Asian Studies captured me and captivated me. These were not part really of of readings natin in history, but my readings in history were very great. Dr. Samuel Tan or Professor Samuel Tan, very, very unconventional. Sinabay niya po yung indigenous people's histories, the Christians' histories, and the Muslim histories. 3 history books at one time. So our syllabus was 3. 3 syllabi, and I was very appreciative that my college was with these people. You have the likes of see Professor Nugid, a Jesuit professor that would open up your eyes to questioning faith and religion, so that for a time I was being courted by agnostics and atheists. So that at that moment in time also was that moment to learn your Bible, to learn your Quran, to learn your faith. And so I come 25 years later after college. But before that, I wanted to be in UP Law. Just to tell you kasi my little journey. UP Law, to be the first maybe na nakaganito after being that lady president of UP Muslims. And football team at that, guys, I was already wearing this. UP Ladies Football. In UP Law, hindi ako tinanggap. One of the questions in the interview was, would you want to take na lang, ma'am, or why not take Sharia law? Sasabi ko, ma'am, why not UP Law? I'm here na diba, taking your exam. So at that moment, baka masyadong mahangin at hindi yata ako na-appreciate. And so I wrote the Board of Regents to give me another chance at an interview, pero hindi nangyari. Same goes that I went to mga masscom Companies, alam nyo na yung mga primetime news. Companies, because journalism was my course. Nag-apply ako sa, alam nyo na, the big ones, hindi pa rin tinanggap. So that, at that moment in time, 95, 96, 97, were we closing our eyes? Not that maybe I didn't deserve it, but you guys are looking at the way I sound right now is the way I sounded when I was 21. So, Professor, kayo na mag-grade kung hindi ako qualified maging magandang gabi bayan. Diba? So that was my story. I went back to Marawi. Walang tumanggap sa akin na news company in Manila. Then, naging so-called leader tayo ng mga gender, women's rights, became a newscaster, learning my indigenous language, Maranao, kasi nga English and Tagalog was my native tongue, my tongue, because lumaki ako sa labas at saka sa UP, Tagalog. So I didn't know Visaya, I didn't know Maranao, so di ako matao na Tagalog. So I had to learn my language, Maranao. And that was my opening to my culture, to my community, to my faith, that these people in weddings would actually, instead of mall time, instead of social media time, would spend 3 hours of indigenous salsila, the records of our family clan histories, connecting us to other families. That 2 hours has to be invested in a wedding, just to tell you who you are. And that was what I came into. From Manila, that didn't have much of that history telling of who I was as a Maranao person, to my community. And so this PowerPoint is some of the slides that are shared by the Institute of Bangsamoro Studies Network, led by Professor Abudlinga, on how our story, our Filipino story, our community, that part of the South, came to lose some of a substantive portion of who they were because of land dispossession. So that, can you, Oliver, help me out? Next. So this census shows, census would show that from 1903 onwards, you had a predominantly population of a lot of the so-called Moros. Some would question, you weren't really unified as Moros. The Sulu Sultan had their Sulu, the Maguindanao Sultanate had their own Sultanate. So you weren't really one Moro, you know. So, but this was what Miswari in the 1970s discourse narratives would say, this was what the Moro homeland. 13 provinces, including Palawan. At one point, this was predominantly by ethnicity, Sulu, Maguindanao, and Moro populations that were adopting the Islamic faith. Until that time, that next slides would show that it moved, the populations moved. Next, please. So from 1903, you see that there was even a bureau called, Sir Professors of History, there was actually a bureau of non-Christian tribes. You would call them the wild. So that in my law school books, I would actually find the Muhammadans. We weren't called Muslims. And yeah, that was the thing that was called to us, na mga Islamic faithfuls, Mohammedans. So you were classified as either civilized, those that were Christianized, and the wild. So yung mga wild is tayo mga indigenous at saka yung non-Christianized. So that from 1903, that was the population, yung wild, until kumonti tayo. So that is 1913 to 1918 in a span of 6 years or 5 years alone, no? Ganun. I'm sorry, 1903 to 1918, ito 2004, 100 years of movement. So next slide would show these laws that were responsible. American introduced laws, torrent system. Of course, you know that the concept of land in the Philippines right now is really who has title. Kung sino may lupa. So malaking problema yan sa urban settlers in Manila, in Luzon, in Visayas. Sa atin din, yung nawawalan ng lupa because wala kang titulo for the Ifugao community for indigenous peoples. Kaya-importante po yung alam natin yung mga batas na pinanggalingan. This would have an impact on the Marawi issue because of, later I'll tell that. So these are some of the laws. Next. Resettlement Acts declared that all public lands, despite nandoon ka na yung mga ninuno natin, free for all. And therefore, yung mga dumating na mga settlements, people who would settle, and even Americans who took lands, kasi naging governor general sila, yung mga Americans became governor generals in Bangsamoro homeland, they would be able to, until now, the hospital namin is really a military land, yung hospital in Marawi, because of these laws. Next, please. So, areas of autonomy that Ms. Wari claimed in 1976, and laki, no, diba? You would see that. But only 3 provinces voted in the plebiscite. Kaya takot po sila sa BOL ngayon na if you do make ARM vote again, na hindi naging successful masyado yung ARM because you still have to beg for a lot of things. Example, what you beg for. I was former legislator of ARM. You would actually have to beg DepEd to conduct an examination for the Muslim Arabic teachers, Madaris teachers, from National. So you're going to have to wait for DepEd National to craft the exams for an exam that they would not be able to really know what is the Arabic question, what is the Islamic question. Ganun katagal nagsweldo. At ganun katagal hindi magsasweldo ang taong Islamic Arabic teacher because you're going to have to wait for Manila to decide. In the current ARMM autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao, you have to beg for budget. Yes, autonomous region tayo. Autonomous Cordillera tayo, autonomous ARMM. But you go to Manila and have to convince every legislator that you are meriting this kind of budget. And they're going to have to scrutinize every amount in every department. Not knowing why Arabic is valuable? Of course Arabic is valuable. That's the language of children to learn the stories of the Bible of the Muslim communities. It's very valuable that you, the local autonomous region, decide. But it doesn't. It's not that way. So this was the original demand claim ni na Nur Miswari, MNLF 1968, yung Jabida massacre. Of course, you know that timeline when the then Senator Ninoy Aquino exposed the Jabida in Corregidor Island, where certain Tausug soldiers, etc., were asked to attack Sabah. That's the story, at least. That's the narrative. And then these Tausug soldiers refused, and their names are engraved there because Corregidor already commemorates the annual Jabida commemoration every March 1968, and then they were shot at. And so 1968, Jabida was exposed by Senator Ninoy Aquino, Sr., and then led to the MNLF, and then led to the breakaway MILF. Next, please. So they would say this book, Raisa would say that Marcos at that time really divided and balkanized the areas by having these artificial armies that would fight Moros, so that they wouldn't really claim areas that were already with settlements nga. So 1970s had a very horrific martial law period in the South where you have memories of bodies piled on top of each other. Next. So that's the that's the next PowerPoint would be. Okay na yan? Kasi this is already BOL. Marawi Rehab that a government is introducing. So Marawi City has its, formerly called Dansalan. It has its narrative as well. Accordingly, this Lake Lanao that you see is 15 million years old. That is registered in the International Lake Environment Committee, ILEC, in Japan. We're trying to introduce that passageway by which professors and instructors that are expertising or experts in Lake Lanao are trying to make conscious effort to introduce Lake Lanao as a Philippine national heritage. This is the second largest lake in the Philippines, next to Laguna Lake. So, hindi lang po yan tubig, kundi may kwento na hindi ka pwede masyadong mag-diving dyan because may mga tunong ang tawag namin. How do you call it in Baguio or where? Sa indigenous language, may mga spirits in the water, and so you cannot just swim basta-basta because accordingly nga, some would not surface anymore when you do diving. So, importante ay nakakadaan ka dyan with some form of respect and some form of dapat merong mga paalam-paalam sa mga sa may kasama ka dapat. And then 1935 Declaration of Dansalan reminds us also that the Filipino datus, the Maranao datus, tore up their cedulas in protest to the Philippine Commonwealth. If that's the 1935, sir, history professors. The 1935, that they resisted that identification with the Philippine Commonwealth. Filipino, so that Marawi is also relevant because they were a resistance location. They were a location for also the start of the first gunshot against martial law. So very, very relevant po ang Marawi. You don't find this much in history books. Kinukwento ito ng mga matatanda sa amin. Next. And so what happened? 2016, 17, last year, I was drafting with the Bangsamoro Transition Commission the organic law. And so sabi ko, I did my job. I did my job, represented the women, represented the children, represented the youth. I introduced the Commission on Youth Affairs. We introduced Women Commission, the rights of women, non-discrimination in the provisions of the BOL. We also put in the IP provision, the provision on pacification mediation system. There are three kinds of justice system in a Bangsamoro, not one over the other: Islamic Sharia, Philippine laws, and the indigenous way of system. So, hindi mo ipupuwersa yung indigenous UP communities ng Maguindanao na ma-under sa Sharia. These are three equal co-systems. Debate namin yan. Debate namin yan. So, sa amin, tatlo yan, co-equal. Hindi mo ipupuwersa yung Kristiyano na ilalagay mo sa Sharia. So, yan po, Marawi. What happened? May 23, I did my job. I finished the sessions. I attended fully the sessions. I was part of the three committees: committees on economics, committees on human rights, basic rights, and other committees. Basta, I am, sabihin nila sa Facebook, a BBL quitter. No, I didn't quit. By the time it was May, 5th month of the BTC, it was already consultations on the final product of the BOL. Hindi po ako nag-quit. I did my job. So, this May 23, happened. We were in Zamboanga for the Basilan Sulu Tawi-Tawi consultations. And so, ang tawag sa akin is, ma'am, something is happening in Marawi. And I'm the Marawi girl from the 21 members of the BTC. Walang taga-Marawi doon, except one sultan, but he's Manila-based. So sabi ng chairman namin, Samira, are you gonna go back to your home? Because syempre, you can't get in anymore. My 3-year-old was there, 2-year-old then last year, and my husband. My mom. And so sabi ko, well, I'll have to go back and check on my family. And I didn't resign then. Hindi pa ako nag-resign that day, May 23. So lunchtime po kasi, just like Baguio, it was traffic there at the highway. Traffic po yan 12:30 onwards. I mean, that's a peak of the hour. It was graduation period, May 23. There were schools that were graduating, buying gifts. People weren't together. People were shopping. And you have a warrant for an international terrorist called Hapilon. You were going to serve it to Hapilon in that busy highway, near that mosque na napakalaki, where they just had an Islamic convention. So many boys were there, many males that attended the convention were still lingering around. And when you serve that warrant, people just gravitated towards protecting him. Yung mga colleagues niya. And then you had putukan. And then people running. People nagkagulo. And you can imagine ako, may balik Islam na sister ako, in-law, convert from Cagayan Valley who was stuck in the hospital. Because by 1 hour, 2 hours later, shots na nga, there was already terror groups, Mauti members that were being checked in the hospital. And nanginginig ka na mag-opera, syempre as a doctor. The doctors hid. And I called my sister who was not speaking Arabic kasi nga itong mga batang to are galit sa mga taong hindi Islam, di ba? And didn't speak Arabic. So I was so nervous na masasaktan yung aking doctor-in-law na sister-in-law. Doctor na sister-in-law. So sabi ko, hide. I called her, hide in the hospital. Who are these guys? YouTube. They were products of a revolutionary phenomenon called cell phone, where they can learn from a discussion group like that and from a cell phone upload of things that are thought by other people na really extreme, to the extreme, that those who don't speak Arabic, those who don't speak Islam are different and are the enemy. For 6 years, we've been fighting deaths against gays. Pinapatay 1, 2, 3 gays in beauty parlors. Christians, vendors. Soldiers and policemen. It was a 6-year movement. They were there in and out. We couldn't remove that. So the national administration knows that there was a safety issue locally, although sporadic siya, in this very quiet homeland called Marawi. Like Baguio, napakataas, 600 feet above sea level in that pristine area where you have very beautiful greenery as well, and MSU, Mindanao State University, like UP Baguio. So from that small location, sentro kami, my house is near the shooting site. Siyempre nanginginig na ako. I might be an anti-crime leader, but I'm not a perfect volunteer. I said, this is wrong. And so, the fighting, 3 months later, ayan na, half of a city. MSU is there, outside that red, orange areas na affected. 500,000 population. Because not just Marawi City, pati mga nearby municipalities, nagka-apektuhan. So you can imagine Baguio, then yung mga katabi niya rin. Nabobombahan, itong Baguio, then may portions outside of Baguio na bigla na nagkamali kasi yung plane ay dapat for Baguio pero doon na nahulog yung bomba sa kabila. So it would happen. So people were running away May, June, July. Hindi po to sine eh. Hindi sine. Hanggang ngayon po, kasing laki yung bomba ng tao. Pinakita naman ng sundalo eh. They made a PowerPoint. Ma'am, we cannot allow you guys to return just like that. Kasing laki nyo yung mga bomba. Hindi maalis-alis, nasisira yung mga gamit namin. Backhoe. Pero ang dali nyo pong binomba eh. Ang dali nyo first day pa lang, ginawa nyong martial law. No lockdown. Kung walang sasakyan yung kapamilya ko, do you think makalabas sila? Kung walang paa yung tao, do you think makalabas sila? Patients carrying their dextrose were running. Can you imagine? Naka-wheelchair ka. Nobody's assisting you anymore. Nurses and doctors, wala na. Wala kang Red Cross dyan, wala kang Boy Scout. Hindi mo man lang kami pinrepair. Tao ba kami? Pilipino ba kami? That day you decided lockdown. And then you have Fatima Lumabao. 4 of her children are missing and she doesn't have answers. She's been writing letters, President, down the line. Next. Ay, yung mga taong yan, indigenous community yan, feeling sultan yan ng mga tao. Royalty ka, kinukwento nila eh. 2 centuries, 6 centuries, na hindi tayo nakikipag-marry with other cultures. We're this way. We're royal blood. And then pinatulog natin sila dyan. Of course, every evacuation community has to stay that way, but they've never been that way. They've never experienced that. Because you didn't prepare them eh. So this is illegal. And there were not enough CRs, too big. And literally, when I spoke in Congress, talagang may isang volunteer kami. Naglibing siya ng isang bata sa morning, maglilibing pa siya sa gabi. Ma'am, sorry ma'am, hindi ko na kaya. Rescue team po kami. Nag-set up kami ng rescue. So, sige, siyempre, sabi ko, siyempre, wag ka na maglibing ka naman. Just go rest. Kasi people needed to have somebody to assist them. Language-wise, parang hindi na makasalita yung mga tao ba na I need assistance, mag-isa sila sa hospital, walang kasama. So, in a community that was so close-knit nga, together, third cousins ay parang kapatid, everybody was for his own, kanya-kanya na. Spread out wherever you can. In the country, in Iligan, nearby, Cagayan de Oro. From Baguio cold to industrial heat, Iligan. Imaginein mo, yung body temperature, kaya dehydration. Ang laki ng nawalang mga bata. At mga pregnant women who didn't have any more liquid to give a child in the womb. Kaya lumabas yung bata tigas. Women couldn't give birth anymore. Premature. Next. This woman, sabi ko, in that forum conference, DSWD, Task Force MARAWI, she has been 4 months sleeping on the floor sa evacuation area, and her breasts are parang, nagba-breast cancer na siya. Can't you bring her to a hospital? Kailangan ba namin i-repeat sa inyo yan, DOH? And still nobody will pick her up. She becomes a kwento or statistics. And who am I? I resigned 1 year after Marawi siege, knowing and shocked that my colleagues sa rescue team were not shocked in the word rape on TV. We were watching TV, and in front of soldiers, you're gonna have to say rape 1, 2, 3 times. And I know our beloved president, did say sorry. But that moment, people weren't saying anything. They weren't, bakit niya sasabihin yon at that moment na nagkakagulo kami, di ba? Sabi ko, I can't take it. Kasi people weren't talking eh. Mga katabi ko, yung mga rescuers, parang going about their way. So I felt that baka it's the shock trauma thing na people weren't already processing what they hear. Parang okay lang, whatever is said to them. And somebody like me had to make a decision. Madali lang naman guys, yung text lang naman eh. It wasn't a heroic decision, of course not. Sweldo lang yon. 60,000 lang naman, di ba? A month, sasakyan. Kaya nyo yun. Kaya nyo yun. Text lang naman eh, I resign. It's not such a heroic thing. So there, what's heroic is you lost your child, like Miss Raihana. She lost her 3-year-old walking from Marawi to Iligan, and yet she still volunteered as a rescue team 3 days after losing her daughter. So next. Next. Olive. Taigam lao, naghang. And then the children, a lot of the, yung tulong nyo, I'm sure you did. By the time it was 1 month or 2 months later, 160 organizations, despite ayaw natin ng UN, 160 orgs welcomed to go there, despite bullets in Marawi. Lockdown yun pero in Iligan, doon nag-set up UNICEF, Red Cross, ICRC, brought in water, brought in ambulances. People had to go through checkpoints. Ang hirap, pero Red Cross, syempre red agad, pwedeng dumaan. You cannot just pass through checkpoint. So kahit gusto mo maglibing, hindi ka maglilibing, magtiis ka muna, yung katawan dyan muna. Kaya nung when I spoke in Congress, July 22, 3 months later, I said, where is the cemetery for dead people? Paano kung kadugo mo yon, sir? Sundalo, ayaw mong ilibing, kayong meron kayong helicopter, di ba? Meron kayong eroplano, pero mga taong to wala. Katawan nandoon, skeleton na eh. So right now, 16 months later, we're still connecting people's DNA to people who don't know kung namatay yung kamag-anak. CSI. But you can no longer discover kung magkamag-anak kasi wala na eh. Our technology is not as precise. We cannot know if you're the same blood, and therefore you're just a number in the cemetery. Sa undas, hindi mo alam kung ang katapat mo, siya talagang namatay. So sa undas natin noong November 1, Christian bodies were in the Muslim cemetery. And these Christian hostages or Christian dead deserve to know kung talagang yung katawan na yon ay pwedeng alisin sa cemetery na yon, di ba? So, this child was a 9-year-old Walid. He was praying inside the mosque, August or July, near the capital, which was supposed to be a safe haven. And yet, he got sniped and dead in a mosque. Imagine mo, parang church eh. It's our only haven. Diba? Pag hostages, pag merong terror threat, punta tayo sa church, protektado tayo. Pero dito, mosque, hindi ka protektado. So wala ka nang mapupuntahan at that moment in time. Next. So after I spoke July 22 in Congress, 2 days Monday later, kasi Saturday on Monday, ayan, naglibing na sila. Women and men, children. And hindi yan subject of a press conference because people can't avoid a press con. And of course, the soldiers rescued as many as they could, of course. They would report everything, but they cannot report who this person and how she was a mother, how she took care of 4 children. Until now, she couldn't find. Next. So when I spoke in Congress, torture victim, Speaker Alvarez says, I'm lying. UP Baguio, is this a lie? That this mother will come to us and tell us the story of the son who was tortured under authority. Because you have to admit you're a terrorist. It's an accomplishment. Of course it's an accomplishment to find the terrorists. But 1,000 dead is not an accomplishment. Because you're saying there's just 200 terrorists. So what became of the 800? Saan yun? It means they were just ordinary people. And soldiers, of course, na mga baguhan. A soldier would have a pension. But an ordinary person dead cannot have a pension. Wala siyang benefit po. Kaya kailangan po UP Baguio help research karapatan ng mga tao. He was 21. He was walking alone, fasting eh. Ramadan period yan eh. It was Ramadan. People did not have food. So iniwanan niya sarili niya doon, sa war zone, mag-isang naglalakad. Naiwanan kasi siya. Hindi niya narinig na everybody was panic na. And the mother can no longer enter the war zone to pick him up. And yet, the safety was not safety and the haven wasn't a haven. Next. A rescuer passed by this highway, parang ito, major highway nyo, sa Baguio. Wala pang katawan, 11:30 in the morning. By the time he passed by 12 o'clock, 12:15, nadatnan niya yan. And there were 2 checkpoints in between. Ang bilis ng pangyayari, may katawan agad. Next. And of course, the reparation bill right now in Congress is that it proposes to check on, to address yung mga lahat ng nawalan. A lot of our traders, and you know that the Maranaos are there sa Malcolm Square, sa Burnham Park, they didn't keep money in the banks. The money was in vaults. Yung napakaliit na pera mo para sa eskwela ng bata, nasa vault. And yan. Pagbalik mo dyan, wala ng vault, wala ng pera. In fact, in the Lake Lanao, may mga nahanap na 1,000 bills. Nagkahulugan. Right now, 16 months later, you don't have a right to return. Because there's just no legislation for an armed attack, for a terrorist attack. If it was a terror attack, armed confrontation. So that, post-BOL, hoy MILF, trabaho naman kayo. Baka wala na kayong botante for Marawi. So you're gonna have to check on this. Mga taong nawalan ng bahay, nawalan ng mga hanap buhay, at nawalan ng buhay. Next. Yeah. The Philippine Army reports that there are no filed reports on looting, that a so-called soldier took this. But we ask an investigation. We ask for an investigation to put to rest that some in authority who were in control of the territory took advantage of being inside the house. Kasi wala nang warrant, di ba? Pasok ka na lang sa mga bahay. At lahat ng mga armas at pera ay nandyan lang for those who are in control of the territory. Merong mga robbers, kawatan, only God knows, walang CCTV. You're gonna have to do an honest-to-goodness reporting, documentation. Next. That's the story din of Tacloban, di ba? And other calamities. We would want na wag naman nagnanakawan. Nawalan na nga tayo, magnanakawan pa tayo. Lahat tayo nangangailangan. Well, the young people are still very, very assertive. The location kasi ng war zone is the place where 24 barangays, it's like UP Baguio, UP Diliman, / public market, UP Student Commercial Center natin, / Menjola. Doon tayo nagagather for all mobilizations. Right now, of course, martial law, you cannot as much mobilize and question and protest. So some few young people are sitting on a barricade and trying to ask a return to Marawi. So, after 16 months, ngayon pa lang last week nagkaroon ng rehabilitation announcement or a groundbreaking without the president there in Marawi. Next. Sorry. Itong si mother and those people na naka-circle, that's our job kasi sa rescue team, documenting missing persons. And the United Nations tell us that the state, ang estado, may obligasyon na hanapin at i-connecta or find an explanation. You check UNGIDP, UN Guiding Principles on internal displacement, hindi lang po dokumento para sa internet or sa table. Let's try to assert every provision there. So they're missing. And these children have no subsidy for them. Next. We haven't. And you Filipinos should not. You cannot stop or else we give up. Kasi hindi na kakayanin pero parang hindi namin kaya. It's really tiring. And so we need the world to speak with us as well. Find answers. Because you're not gonna escape. There's been a bomb attack in Davao City, for God's sake. The public market. This here, chika here sa Baguio, of course, one person's teaching of a bad Islam is not the teaching of the whole Muslim community. Of course not, right? But you're gonna have to be CCTV, technology, NBI, intelligence, rin, active. Hindi lang mga civilian kami ang pupuntiryahin na kasalanan natin dahil sa pumasok ang mga ibang klaseng tao sa komunidad. Next. And so, the BOL also is now activating kasi nga pa, hindi pa, di ba, nagkaroon ng plebisito, yung Bangsamoro Organic Law. So, the mechanism for consultation and people's participation is through, may mga joint efforts ang MILF and the communities. And then you're also going to have a transitional justice mechanism which is in the BOL, the law itself by which yung mga nasaktan during martial law, yung mga nawalan, as well as siguro ngayon din sa Marawi and Sulu and all these mga communities na nasaktan, ay pwede mag-file ng claim dyan sa TJRC Commission. Of course, you know that there's also a board, HRV Claims Board, Human Rights Violation Claims Board. Where the president was having a State of the Nation address, the communities were having a State of the Bakwit address. Next. Okay, next. So there's still 60,000, almost 60,000 people that are outside of Marawi, that are evacuees, and they're also in Baguio. I met some of them yesterday, na mga dito na lang nakipagsapalaran. They're doing well, but what we're saying is if you're a displaced person, you also have to have some form of subsidy support so that you can carry on with your life. There are still people who can't afford a mental hospital subsidy. They cannot afford a mental hospital budget because they don't have a job anymore. Kaya ka na mental eh. Nawala ka sa trabaho mo. O di sino magbayad nun? Mental hospital. Sa Mandaluyong, 1 victim. Next. So that's us. The power of volunteers. Like you. You've done something, I'm sure, for Benguet landslide. You've done it in the past. The youth volunteerism in the Filipino is the highest ever, I'm sure, in the world. And a lot of them came to Marawi. They were giving money. They were giving cash. Ours is a policy push to protect people, human life. You could have chosen no to bombings every day. And given that 6 billion to schools, you spend 6 billion for a war. When children don't even have pencils and boards. Next. Relief ops. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to the country. Thank you to the world. A lot of the support. For people who didn't have jobs anymore, of course. Thank you. Next. So, prospects for BOL is to answer still the continuing challenges of no shelter for those communities, seeking justice, finding missing people. The story is as sad as it gets, but the drive for young people is just so alive. And we've seen some of the Baguio groups go there, go to Marawi, find a way to reach a hand and a helping hand. And of course, not just for Marawi, but for every war victim, for every calamity victim, and Benguet also. Dinaanan nyo. Hindi pa namin kaya dumating sa Benguet mudslide to reach out, but know that nakikiisa kami sa lahat ng mga nangyayari din dito. Knowing that two of us, ARMM, Bangsamoro, Cordillera, are really of the, how do you call, the warrior race. We tried to defend our homeland once upon a time, and until now we still do defend our homeland, our culture, and our way of life. So with this, as a young leader, my dream and aspiration for the Filipino is to bring back that kambabi-babid. What is this kambabi-babid? This language of honoring who we are, kasi pare-pareho tayong who came from a certain indigenous tradition that doesn't have to be codified. Those laws and traditions that are not in rules, but spoken out in the breath of a sleeping elder, of an elder that we know if we hold onto her hand, she has that answer for us. Right now, social media is providing answers, but I beg of you, you young generation, to find value in conversation, to find value in listening, to find value with your grandmother. Don't make it a social media event. Let it just be you and her talking. Good morning.
Alright, salamat, Miss Samira. Now we still have time we actually have 30 minutes, no? So we can spend the remaining 30 minutes to ask our questions or give our comments. So, anyone? So, para kung meron pa tayong gustong linawin o may mga tanong pa sa ating isipan, sinong gustong maunang magtanong? Okay, sige. Okay, kailangan, yeah. Sige, habang pinagninilayan nyo pa ang inyong mga natanggap na impormasyon ngayong umaga, sige. Yes, you can just have to process.
I welcome questions, guys. But if you can't ask right now, I'm on Facebook naman and Twitter. So you can reach me out. And yeah. Okay. Any questions, guys? You guys outside? Did you see the photos on TV or not? Do you know the stories that I'm saying? Kasi I didn't get to track down 16 months. I've been not really on TV. Plus, wala masyado kaming dating time ni husband. Promise. Yes, ma'am, Professor.
Basic question lang. For some of us maybe who are not really aware of the background of why Marawi was bombed. The only thing, for example, I know was there was the Mauti group daw was there. So I don't know, you are the one on the field, so if you can give us that.
That question is the exact question ko. I don't know what happened. Why bomb? And the questions have to be asked by the academe. They made the decision under martial law circumstances to confront each other by fighting in that May 23, and then later airstrikes already. The struggle was to ask for no airstrikes, the civil society tayo appealing, but they said, we're going to have to do airstrikes. Generals have to. So yes, they listened to us, but they did not listen to us. Airstrikes had to be implemented because this multi-group were occupying the highway, the hospital, the fire station. Fire truck was taken over. So you're going to have to bomb from above. Kasi yung fight from below, mahirap na. Parang they were using sniper versus yung mga soldiers' equipments. High-tech na mga gamit daw ng mga batang yun eh. So yeah, it was a military security decision. Martial law was governed by when martial law was declared, it was governed by martial law, DND, Department of Defense. And my question, Ma'am Professor, is where was the gender dimension? Were the women officials of government asked? What is the impact on women, diba, of putting airstrikes? What is the impact on children? An investigation nga naman is being asked naman eh. The call.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up question, ma'am? Or maybe questions from the group? Yes. We use this. Okay. Kindly say your name and then
Good morning, ma'am.
Hi.
Ezekiel Fernandez po.
Hi, Ezekiel.
Social Sciences, major in History, minor in Philosophy.
Hi.
So, yung question ko lang po, magpa-particularize lang siya doon sa nature siguro ng Mautes. So, yun po. Ma'am, would you consider Maute as a fundamental movement or merely a terrorist movement? Fundamental movement, in my own sense, I think, similar with the movement of MNLF and MILF, yung terrorist movement, similar with, ano ba?
ISIS.
Siguro yung movement po I wouldn't classify terrorist movement specifically, pero yun, ano po yung, would you consider Maute movement as a fundamentalist movement or merely terrorist group?
That's a good question because there's no definite acceptance ng community natin na terrorista sila. So from where they're coming from, fellow Maranaos, they would actually be people who've been teaching this kind of fundamentalist ideology. Pero walang armas eh. Wala silang armas na pinapakita. Na-shock na lang tayo at that moment in time. Nag-armasan na sila. Kasi yun nga, sinervan ng warrant si Hapilon, tapos may mga armas nga, yung soldiers who came inside Marawi. So that if you would ask me, I'm not really keen on trying to put myself in that position to classify who's who or not. Because anti-terrorism laws din naman are very, very, still not yet implemented as much. The martial law administrators decided that terrorists sila, so therefore patayin sila. And that has been a question sa amin ng mga peace groups. Pag terorista yan, i-aresto. Kasi may anti-terror law ka naman eh. There's no law that tells you kill a terrorist.
Follow-up question, ma'am. Regarding naman po dun sa composition, yung composition po ba nung so-called Maute groups na nag-siege nung Marawi ay foreign or local coming from the peripheries of Marawi City?
So you have this convention, they were all together, yung sinabi ko sila, they had this I'm not sure if you know they're kind of Buddhist, yung Tabligh Convention na wear white, yung mga lalaki. A bit of Puritan Muslims, yung mga lalaki lang. They were together for a convention or the yearly, it's not a convention really, yung nasa mosques lang sila, prayers, like Buddhists. So they were there, and then nagkatapos noon, nangyari yung insidente na confrontation, hapilon, and some of the guys, not all the guys, some of the guys na friend nga ni Hapilon, nakisama, pati foreigners. So I don't know if there was a game of boys, na naging game of boys na who wanted to join a fight. I don't know if you can relate to a fraternity war. I don't know if you can relate to a gang war. But this is again subject of cost of study. I didn't really have information. I didn't have a CCTV. Eh. So my point pa rin, as we as academics or we as students of facts, is try to get to know what happened. We didn't get to ask them, they died. Eh. Diba, Ezekiel? How can we get info? Napatay na sila eh. So you cannot get data that who started it all. Facts cannot be brought out.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Other questions? Yes. Yes.
Hello, ma'am.
Kindly stand up and identify yourself.
And hello, ma'am. I'm from the College of Social Sciences, major in economics, minor in political science. My name is Margaret.
Hi, Marge.
Ayun po.
Feeling close, no, Marge?
Okay lang po. Ayun. Ma'am, I would like to ask what the local government units
was doing.
Yes, ma'am, during the siege, because I only know the stories from my father. And my father's a journalist. He went to Marawi.
Wonderful.
He went to Marawi to cover the siege. And ayun, ma'am, the only stories I know are from him. So I want to know what you know that the local government units did in response to the crisis here.
One way to answer this is that under martial law administrationship, Marge, the LGU was subservient to the martial law administrator. Therefore, hindi siya chairman of what is going on in a war room. So bomb this, the mayor can't say no. Bomb the mosque, the mayor cannot say no. So I'm telling you, the LGU was part of the martial law administratorship. And my appeal to you is, say no to martial law. Because you're going to have to let people govern how they should. And maybe we failed because we didn't get the sultans and the imams to negotiate these boys to stop what they're doing. At that day, you decided that a military force had to be implemented. President, yes, you said sorry. But 1,000 people died na. So that's water under the bridge. You're going to have to investigate and find a reparation, compensation for the resulting consequence. So what did the LGU do? He had to protect the city hall. It's the only last bastion. He was there with some guys, relatives. They were there to protect. And then the crisis center was put up in the provincial governor's office. So they were each protecting their own areas. While people were running to Iligan City, and the mayor took care of us in Iligan City, in Cagayan de Oro City. So when you have a disaster like that, you're going to have, yes, a national action, but you're also going to have a co-equally respect the local way of decision-making as well. Wag pinagbawalan mo na sumama si Ulama eh. Ang issue doon is, will you give these kids money to leave the city? One of the issues. And of course, the policy is don't go giving cash to terrorists. But at the expense of a population. Nangyari na. So they did what they did. Day 1, day 2, day 3, hindi na tayo babalik. There's no announcement na bring all your titulos and belongings. Yung titulo na yun, na never mo pong na-register sa DAR or sa land titling. Or yung agreement ng mga elders natin na I give unto you, one sentence lang in Maranao. Bond paper lang. I give unto you my property. Ngayon, magpapatayin mga kakapatid. Dahil hindi klaro kung sino may-ari sa lupa. You created a multiple problem. So Marawi is a template for trying to resolve conflicts co-equally, national and local. Zamboanga Siege, Mayor Ben Climaco was the chair of the task force. So she was commanding. She was commanding the ILG Rojas, she was co-equally deciding with Secretary Mar at the Zamboanga siege. So the Zamboanga siege was 27 days. Marawi City, 6 months. 1,200 dead. Mosques, churches burnt, sira.
Sir.
I have one question. The conditions for the proclamation of martial law are very stringent, invasion and rebellion. Now, how could it have been justified that it was a case of invasion and rebellion to be able to proclaim it?
The boys who were not from Marawi were declared rebels. Rebellion. It was called rebellion that they staged all these white flags. They put up these flags of theirs. So it was a 30-page, 50-page professor na Supreme Court decision. I don't want to read it, but there's just so much facts there that they wrote to declare and interpret it to be invasion and rebellion. The Supreme Court decided for the martial law administrators to decide, yes, it should be done. It is an invasion and rebellion. So the putting up of flags, there were so many incidents that they, 1, 2, 3, alam mo naman pag military, di ba? They would cite that. But to us, kunyari, putting up a white flag, that doesn't make us less Filipino. Nandiyan kayo. They have their own flag. Pero bawal nga, yeah. Pero like freedom of expression, they're gonna have a constitutional issue, di ba? Nag-ano yan mga batang yan. And sasabihin na naman ni Montulfo, kasalanan nyo na nangyari yan, na hindi kayo na-rehabilitate. Bakit, Sir Montulfo? Were you there? And you saw that people were scrambling and the elderlies were walking 39 kilometers from Marawi to Iligan City? How dare you say it's a fault of a population? You will fault an old woman? God. When we have to be so sensitive at the time of death. Yes, sir. They cited incidents that would lead to invasion rebellion.
Some question. Right? Any more questions? Yes. Yes. Okay. Mula sa labas, may mic na dyan. Okay.
Come.
Pasok ka na lang.
My name is Patricia Manghila. I'm from College of Science. I'm taking BS Biology. Late po kasi ako dumating, so I'm not sure kung tama yung narinig po. But I heard na there are 200 terrorists po na parang not identified, pero 200 terrorists. However, 1,000 ang casualties. Clearly, and yung Marawi po is under martial law, right? So if may terrorist attack, di po ba ang sabi sa Constitution na ang buhay ng civilians is dapat parang valued. However, kung ganun ho, may 800 na casualties ng civilians, ano po yung, that's unconstitutional. So ano po yung, paano in-address ng government yung ganun? 800 is a very big number. And kung casualties man siya, it's, parang kailangan talaga siya i-address. Pero ano ho yung ginawa ng government para ma-address yung ganun?
That's so true, ma'am. That's why we say, Pat, that we go to the value of passing an IDP rights bill. If I do get to push it in the February rounds, I'm going to be publicly campaigning already by February. The Indigenous Peoples, the Internally Displaced Persons Bill would really actually protect people from being hurt, and therefore merong claim ka sa government. You have a claim to your life. Kung namatayan yung anak mo, namatay yung kamag-anak mo. So, accordingly, the IDP rights bill wasn't passed because yun nga may component on financial compensation. And right now, we're still fighting for that IDP rights bill. So what is government doing? We're not yet sure, but the Task Force Marawi has been kinukulit namin on identifying the dead people. Kasi to us, alam namin, chismis or alam, 200 ang mga numbers nito mga taong to. They cannot be 1,000. But the government is saying 1,000 terrorists. So who's who? Who's right? That's why it's important for facts and data. But the people you're going to ask are dead. So we just need really information, Pat. What is government doing? Help me. Help us ask information. They should be answering also, and accounting and accountability is an issue for us.
As a college student na nakatira na malayo sa Mindanao or Marawi, paano po kami makakatulong?
We urge that we also assert that the right of people to find answers, to find return to Marawi as a concept, be also supported by co-Filipinos as well. Kailangan bilisan yung rehabilitation so that people can get back and also find answers nga doon sa mga nawalan na mga tao. Missing.
No.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay, there's another question from, Please kindly identify yourself.
Hi, ma'am. I'm Justin.
Hi,
Amores.
Justin. Not Bieber.
Yes. I'm a Bass history student, and I'd like to thank you for being here and sharing us the case of the Marawi siege. And my question lies with, since we are students of Baguio who doesn't have the first-hand involvement in major programs and projects for the Marawi community, how else can we help other than knowing, researching, having information? Are there major programs or projects?
Wonderful. Maybe one thing is to connect to the Maranao traders here, and some of them are here. Jafar, you can introduce the Maranao groups who are also evacuees in Baguio, and try to know how they are. Kumustahin niyo naman sila. And maybe through them, you can do a program for them who are here na lang, di ba? Hindi na malayo. So I'm sure their issue would be livelihood, shelter, acceptance, being part of our community in Baguio. So they're just there. Many of them are in Burnham yata or traders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I think there's a
Justin.
question. Meron pa ba sa labas? Because someone's raising her hand here. Yeah? O, dito muna. Okay? Sinong nga yung nagtataas ng kamay? Yeah? Kindly pass the mic.
Good morning, ma'am. My name is Giovanni from the College of Social
Hi,
Sciences.
Jov.
Studying history.
Hi.
My question is, dun sa part ng community elders of Maranao, how did they, as community elders representing the culture and the traditions of Maranao, Marawi,
Yes.
how were they able to absorb the destruction that happened to their home, and were they involved in the entire rehabilitation process in any kind of discussions with the government?
They are asked right now to co-decide on yung boundaries of lands and houses. Kasi right now, di ba, ang kakugulo na yung magkakapatid. And government is going to put up this rehabilitation program. We're going to have highways. We're going to have mga buildings. But sila, yung mga sultans, tinanong, mag-help kayo na yung mga lupa-lupa na mga maapektuhan yung mga private lands ay ma-negotiate nyo yung mga communities na tanggapin nila na kailangan ng public infra. So ang amin naman as activists and peace workers, advocates, rescue team is that bawat bahay and location originally in the war zone, be maintained yung bahay ng bawat isa. Pero government kasi under martial law ngayon and under government laws, government will have to decide. So we're asking that the sultans also help in co-deciding the direction of the community. So we don't need big buildings na kaparang Dubai. We don't need big di ba, dreams. Kailangan lang yung simpleng buhay kasi simple naman talagang community eh. You cannot impose a modern way of life to a very, very na walang sinihan for all this time. I've been there for 21 years. I don't have cinema. I have to go to Manila for cinema. Cagayan de Oro, Iligan. For sinihan. So ganun newspapers, 15 pieces lang. Ilan lang merong YouTube or, we have Wi-Fi, but many people are still not into digital. So there's a digital divide then. So sultans, co-deciding. Kailangan gawin silang part. I'm traveling back to Manila. I'm so grateful for this moment, ma'am, Professor Chair. And there's a big meeting, and I really thank to God na J3 helped me to get here. I'm sure that the story natin will not end today. It'll be continuing storytelling, guys. There's just too many stories, guys. It's 14,000 affidavits to write. Hindi namin kaya po. So thank you. Every time I face you guys, you give us hope that there's somebody out there listening. You're co-Filipinos, kadugo namin kayo. We didn't have a press con that time, but you gave me this moment, and thank you, God. I thank you. Salamat po.
Alright. Maraming salamat, Miss Sam. At syempre po, nice nating pasalamatan si Miss Samira Gutoc. At we would like to present this certificate of appreciation to Miss Samira Ali Gutoc-Tomawis for her invaluable service as resource speaker in the lecture forum on Marawi before and after the siege and the prospects and pitfalls of the Bangsamoro Organic Law, held at the College of Social Sciences, AVR, UP Baguio, given this 8th day of November 2018. Okay, signed by yours truly and our Dean, Professor Aureliano A. Colongan Jr. So, Dean.
Jay, join me. Can I ask the professors to join me, my moms and sirs? Ano po masaba? 3 or 5? Ang yung estudyante.
Ako naman.
Jay,
Medyo mabigat.
thanks. Library. The acting leader has to write with notes. Magbabasa ako. Books. Thank you po. Thanks guys. See you on Facebook.
Maraming salamat po.
One of the titles here is still to be launched tomorrow, yung Feasts of Merit.
Yay,
So,
thank you.
ito ilo-launch
Thank you. Okay. So habang meron po tayong konting pika-pika sa labas. Pero bago ang lahat, no, bago kayo lumabas, meron po akong binigay sa inyong evaluation form kanina. Kindly turn over the completed forms to the secretariat, to the students outside sa registration. And let me also take this opportunity to invite you again sa series of lectures ng college. Sir Toto, baka pa-remind lang po ulit yung lectures.
Imbitahan uli namin kayo sa 12 hapon dito, yung sa Institute of Management na Inclusive Business. And then 6 and 7 magkasunod. I-request din natin mag-live stream. Mukhang kilala niyo yung mga speakers din na yun Si Professor Haydarian, and who will speak of the West Philippine Sea, yung controversy ng ating case in the International Court, kung anong mga backstories doon. And kay ano yan? Kay Marites Vitog pala yan sa December 7. Yung kay Hidarian, yung kanyang ideas on how our democracy can work, how to make our democracy work. So, invited uli kayo doon. Maraming salamat sa inyong pagdalo. Palakpakan nyo inyong mga sarili. And pagkasyahin natin yung ating kunting salo-salo sa labas. Maraming salamat po.